welcome to the deep dive. Today we are going deep on a really interesting piece of tech, the Prusa CORE One 3D printer.
Oh yeah, I've been wanting to talk about this one.
We're going to be taking a close look at a recent review from Tom's Hardware.
They always do a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. They go really in depth. And so for this deep dive, we're going to try to unpack not only the printer's specs and features, but also talk a little about the company behind it.
Prusa, yeah.
Exactly, Prusa. They have a very interesting philosophy, let's say, when it comes to 3D printing and manufacturing in general.
And they just make really good printers.
They do. So even if you're not like super into 3D printing, stick with us. This is going to be a look at innovation, design, and maybe even a little bit of the future, how things are made.
A little peek into the future, yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, for anyone who might not be familiar, the CORE One is a little bit of a departure for Prusa.
It is, yeah. They're well known for those, the bed slinger models.
The MK series, yeah.
Yeah, where the print bed moves back and forth.
Right. But the CORE One, it's actually what's called a Core XY system.
Which is a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. But basically, it means that the print head moves on the X and Y axis, and it can move very, very quickly.
Super fast and very precisely.
Yeah, and that speed is something that a lot of people who are into 3D printing, they want, they want those faster print times.
For sure. Nobody wants to wait forever for a print to finish.
And another thing is that the CORE One has an enclosure, which is something that, a lot of the people who want faster printers also tend to want an enclosure too.
Yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand a lot of times.
Right. So I guess, does this mean that Prusa is moving away from their bed slinger models? Like, is this replacing the MK4S?
It's a good question. And from what I understand, it's not really a replacement.
Right.
It's more like they're offering two different paths.
Okay.
So like different sets of benefits for, different users and different needs.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's not like the CORE One is, the MK5 or anything like that.
Right.
It's just a different approach.
Okay, so the CORE One is not a replacement, but it has that Core XY system.
Right.
And it also has the enclosure, which we've mentioned.
Which is a big deal for a lot of people.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about why that enclosure is such a big deal. What are the benefits of having an enclosed 3D printer?
Well, first off, 3D printers can be noisy.
They can be.
And the enclosure really helps to, dampen that sound.
Yeah.
So you can, maybe you have it in your office or in your living room. You don't necessarily want to be, listening to all that noise all the time.
Right. It's not exactly white noise. It's more like...
Yeah, it's pretty distinctive.
Yeah. So the enclosure definitely helps with that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, it also adds a layer of safety, which can be important for... people with kids.
Yeah, for sure. You don't want little fingers getting in there. Right, exactly. Or pets. Some pets might be interested in a moving print head,
Yeah, for sure. And I'm also thinking about, like fumes.
Oh, yeah.
Some filaments, especially when they're heated up, they can release fumes.
That's true.
And so having an enclosure helps to kind of contain those fumes and protect the people in the room.
Yeah, it can be a health concern.
Right, especially if you're printing a lot.
Yeah, and especially if you're using certain types of filaments.
Right, so the enclosure can help with protecting against those fumes.
Exactly, yeah. It creates a controlled environment.
Yeah, okay. So quieter operation, safety.
Right.
Potentially helps with fumes.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, I think maybe the biggest benefit for a lot of people is that the enclosure allows you to print with more advanced materials.
Oh, yeah.
So things like engineering-grade filaments that need higher temperatures to print properly.
Oh, okay.
So you're talking about things like ASA, for example.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, that's a really popular one. And it needs, it needs that consistent temperature, that higher temperature.
Okay.
To avoid warping and to make sure that the layers adhere properly.
Right, and the enclosure helps with that.
Exactly. It basically turns your printer into like a little oven.
Like a little controlled environment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right, and so that opens up a lot of possibilities for, printing things that are more functional.
Yeah, for sure.
More durable.
Yeah.
Maybe even things that can be used outdoors.
Exactly, yeah. Things that can withstand, UV light and weather and all that.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, it really expands the possibilities of what you can do with 3D printing.
Yeah, totally. Okay, well, one thing that really caught my eye when I was looking at the the pictures of the Core One is that steel frame.
Oh, yeah, it's a beast.
It looks so robust.
Yeah.
Like it looks like it could survive anything.
It really does, yeah.
And it's so different from, a lot of other printers that are, made mostly of plastic.
It definitely gives it a more premium look and feel.
It does. It feels like a serious piece of machinery,
Exactly, and that steel frame, it's not just for looks. It's a really important part of the design.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah.
So, what does it do?
Well, first of all, it provides a lot of strength and stability.
Right.
So, when the printer is running, there are all these, moving parts.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that everything is, nice and stable.
Right.
You don't want any wobbling or shaking because that can affect the quality of your prints.
That makes sense.
And the steel frame really helps to, minimize those vibrations and keep everything running smoothly.
Right. So it's like a foundation.
Yeah, it's like a solid foundation for the whole machine.
And that's important for print quality.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, cool. And I was also reading in the review that they mentioned a reversible door hinge.
Oh, yeah, that's a nice touch.
Yeah, I thought so too. It seems like a small detail, but it's like, it shows that they were really thinking about the user experience.
Yeah, exactly. They've designed it to be as user-friendly as possible. So,
Right.
you can configure the door to open from either side.
Okay.
So, depending on your workspace, you can, you can set it up to work best for you.
Right. That's really clever. So like if you have it in a corner
Exactly.
and you can only access it from one side.
Yeah, you can just flip the hinge around.
That's cool.
Yeah, and they even indented the sides of the enclosure.
Oh, I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah, which, it seems like a small detail,
It does.
but it actually helps to reduce the chamber volume.
Okay.
So, when the heated bed is on,
Right.
it can warm up the whole enclosure more efficiently.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's all about, being efficient and making sure that the printer is performing at its best.
So they've really thought of everything. And, I think this kind of leads into one of the things that I found most fascinating about the Core One, the fact that it's partially made of 3D printed parts.
It is, which is pretty wild when you think about it.
Right. It's like a printer printing itself.
Yeah, kind of.
So what are those parts made of?
Well, they're using a material called PC Blend carbon fiber.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super strong, and it's also lightweight.
Okay.
And get this, they actually produce it themselves.
Prusa does. Yeah.
In their own 3D printer farm.
Hold on. A 3D printer farm.
Yeah.
So they have rows and rows of printers, all printing parts for other printers.
Pretty much.
That's amazing. Is that, is that even sustainable?
It actually is.
Really?
By, by using their own printed parts and controlling the whole production process, they're able to reduce waste and, their reliance on external suppliers.
Right.
They're also, they're using recycled materials where possible.
Oh.
So they're really trying to, minimize their environmental impact.
So it's not just a gimmick.
No, it's a real commitment to sustainability.
That's really impressive. I mean, they're not just making printers, they're building a whole ecosystem.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds like they're thinking about their existing customers too, because the review mentioned that the Core One shares about 70% of its parts with the MK4S.
Yeah, that's a really smart move on their part.
So that means that, if you already have an MK4S,
right,
you can potentially upgrade to the Core One and reuse a lot of your existing parts.
Exactly.
Which is awesome. And also, it helps to reduce waste overall.
Definitely, yeah.
So they're thinking about the environment, they're thinking about their customers.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, so they've nailed the sustainability and the user-friendliness.
Yeah.
But what about the actual printing technology? What makes the Core One stand out from a technical perspective?
Well, I think one of the most significant features is the way it handles bed leveling.
Oh, bed leveling.
Yeah, it's a crucial part of 3D printing, and it can be kind of a pain sometimes.
Yeah, it can be.
But the Core One uses a load cell sensor on the nozzle.
Okay, a load cell sensor. I'm not sure I've heard of that before.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool piece of tech.
So what does it do?
Well, basically, it allows the printer to physically tap the print surface
Okay.
to get a precise measurement of the bed's height.
So it's like the printer is feeling its way around
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
to make sure everything is level.
Exactly, and this is a big improvement over the traditional Panandi probe.
Okay.
which, can be a little bit finicky.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is a much more reliable and accurate way to level the bed.
So for someone like me who, I'm not a 3D printing expert,
Right.
this means I can basically just hit print and know that my first layer is going to be perfect every time.
Pretty much. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It really takes the guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
And it makes the whole process a lot easier, especially for beginners.
That's a game changer.
It really is.
Especially for, like I said, someone who's just getting started.
Yeah.
They don't want to have to mess around with, all those complicated settings.
Right. They just want to be able to print.
Yeah.
And this makes it so much easier.
Okay, so that's the load cell sensor.
Yeah.
That sounds like a huge improvement for bed leveling.
It is. Yeah.
But I'm guessing no printer is perfect, right?
No, you're right about that.
So what are some of the downsides of the Core One? What did the reviewers say?
Well, one thing they pointed out was that it doesn't come with a built-in camera.
Okay.
You can buy one separately, but it's an optional extra. And the reviewer wasn't that impressed with the quality of the optional camera compared to, what some other brands are offering.
Right. So if you really need that remote monitoring capability,
Right.
you might want to look elsewhere.
It's something to consider. Yeah.
Okay. And is there anything else?
Well, the other thing is that while the load cell is a big step up in bed leveling,
Right.
the Core One doesn't have the optional accelerometer that you can get on the MK4S.
Okay.
That sensor can help to detect and compensate for vibrations,
Okay.
which can improve print quality, especially for very detailed prints.
So if you're printing something that has really fine details,
Right.
the accelerometer could make a difference.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay, so it's not quite like the ultimate 3D printer.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say what the ultimate 3D printer is because it really depends on your needs.
Yeah.
But the Core One is definitely a very capable machine.
Yeah, it sounds.
And it's a great option for a lot of people,
Yeah.
especially those who are looking for, something that's user-friendly, sustainable, and produces high-quality prints.
Okay, cool. And before we move on, I think it's worth mentioning that the Core One comes in both pre-assembled and DIY kit versions.
That's right, which is great for people who, maybe want to save a little money or who enjoy the challenge of building things themselves.
Right, like if you're a maker at heart.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you have those options.
Yes. And the reviewer actually recommends, he recommends a couple of alternatives too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if the Core One isn't quite right for you, there are some other options out there that might be worth considering.
Like what?
Well, for example, he recommends the Bamboo Lab P1S combo for people who are looking for affordable multicolor printing.
Oh, wow.
And then he also recommends the Creality K2 Plus combo, which has a larger build volume and can print in 4 colors.
Wow. So there are definitely, there are other choices out there.
Yeah.
For sure. But it sounds like the Prusa CORE One really does offer a pretty unique blend of performance, user-friendliness, and sustainability.
Absolutely.
And, I think maybe before we go on to the performance results, I think it's worth taking a minute to appreciate what this printer represents.
I like where you're going with this.
Yeah, because it's not just about the printer itself.
No.
It's about the company and their vision for the future of manufacturing.
Yeah, that's a statement.
Right. They're showing that it's possible to create high quality products that are also sustainable and accessible.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, especially in today's world.
It is, and it's inspiring,
It is.
All right, well, let's take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll dive into the Tom's hardware review and see how the Core One actually performs in the real world.
Can't wait.
All right, welcome back to the Deep Dive. Before the break, we were talking about all the cool things that Prusa is doing with the Core One, the sustainability and the user-friendliness and all that. But now it's time to get down to, the nitty-gritty. How does it actually perform?
Right. Let's dive into that Tom's hardware review.
Yeah, let's see what they had to say.
Okay, so one of the things that really stood out to me was how well the Core One handles engineering grade materials.
Okay.
Like ASA.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
Right.
So what does that mean for the average person? Why should they care about ASA?
Well, I mean, ASA is known for its durability.
Okay.
It's resistant to UV light and heat, so you can use it to print things that can actually be used outdoors.
Oh,
or in demanding environments.
so like what kind of things are we talking about?
Well, you can print like custom parts for your car
Oh, wow.
or, maybe functional prototypes for new inventions.
So stuff that actually has to like work.
Yeah, exactly. Not just, little figurines or whatever.
Right, right. So ASA is, it's a big deal if you want to print things that are, meant to be used.
Definitely. And the Core One handles it really well, according to the review.
That's awesome. Another thing they mentioned was printing a vase with clear filament.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And they were able to make it look like almost translucent.
It was really cool.
Yeah, it was really impressive. Is that something specific to the Core One, or can any 3D printer do that?
Well, it's not just about the printer itself.
Hmm.
It's about the level of control you have over the printing process.
Okay.
And Prusa's software, Prusa Slicer, is known for being like super powerful.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, it's very customizable. And it's also open source.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's constantly being improved by, a community of developers.
So you're saying that even someone like me who's, not a programmer or anything, I could potentially like tweak the settings and get those kinds of results.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a coding whiz to use Prusa Slicer.
Okay, that's good to know.
It's designed to be accessible, and
Right.
there are tons of resources available online to help you learn the ropes.
So it's like you get a 3D printing education along with the printer itself.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. And, it's cool that they're embracing that open source philosophy,
Yeah, that's
not just for the software, but also for the hardware.
right. Exactly.
We were talking earlier about how the Core One shares parts with the MK4S.
Yeah.
And that means that there's like a huge potential for customization and upgrading.
For sure. You can really make this printer your own.
I love that idea. It's like having a 3D printer that can like grow with you
Yeah.
as your skills and your interests evolve.
It's a really cool approach, and it definitely goes against the grain of, that throwaway culture that we see so often these days.
Yeah, totally. It's like you buy something, you use it for a couple of years.
Right, and then it's obsolete.
Yeah, and you have to buy a new one.
But Prusa seems to be, really focused on building products that are designed to last.
Yeah, I get that sense from them too.
Which is really refreshing.
It is. Okay, so we've talked about all the positives, but let's be real. No printer is perfect.
True.
So what are some of the drawbacks of the Core One?
Well, the review did mention that, it doesn't come with a built-in camera.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Right. You can buy one separately.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as, high quality as some of the integrated cameras you see on other printers,
Right.
especially in this price range.
So if someone really values that remote monitoring capability,
Yeah.
this might be a deal breaker.
It depends,
Yeah.
For some people, it's not a big deal, but for others, it might be.
Right. Right.
If you really want to be able to, keep a close eye on your prints and you want to do it remotely, then you might want to consider one of the alternatives that the reviewer mentioned.
Right. Like the Bamboo Lab P1S combo or the Creality K2 Plus combo.
Exactly.
Okay, so built-in camera or lack thereof.
Yeah.
That's one thing to consider.
Right.
Anything else?
Well, the other thing, and we touched on this before, but while the load cell is a major step up in bed leveling,
Yeah.
the Core One doesn't have that optional accelerometer that you find on the MK4S.
Okay, right. The accelerometer.
Yeah, and that sensor can help to detect and compensate for vibrations,
Okay.
which can further improve print quality,
Right.
especially for those very detailed prints.
So if you're printing, something that requires really high precision,
Yeah,
you might want to consider the MK4S instead.
potentially. Yeah. Or, you could also try to minimize vibrations in your printing environment.
Oh.
Like, make sure your printer's on a stable surface and that there aren't any, sources of movement nearby.
Right. So like don't have it next to your washing machine or something.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they've nailed the sustainability, they've nailed the user friendliness, and for the most part, they've nailed the tech specs.
Yeah, I think so.
But how does the Core One actually perform like in the real world? What were the reviewers' impressions?
Well, they were very impressed.
Okay, good.
Yeah, especially with the print quality and the speed and precision.
Right.
Remember how we talked about the Core XY system
Yeah, yeah.
and how it allows for faster printing?
Right.
They put that to the test with a classic 3D printing benchmark called Benchy.
Oh, yeah, the Benchy. I've seen those online.
That's a little boat.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the mascot of 3D printing.
Exactly. And the Core One printed a beautiful benchy in just 28 minutes.
Wow, that's fast.
It is. Especially for a printer in this class.
Yeah, that's impressive. So it's fast, but what about the details? Like, did they mention anything about how well it handles complex geometries or, intricate designs?
They did. They printed a complex vase with translucent filament,
Okay.
and they were able to achieve like a stunning level of detail and clarity.
So it's not just fast, it's also accurate.
Yeah, exactly. And they also tested it with flexible TPU filament,
Oh, okay.
which can be tricky to print with, but the Core One handled it like a champ.
So it sounds like this printer's a real workhorse.
It is. It can handle pretty much anything you throw at it.
But can it handle materials that need a heated chamber?
Absolutely. They even printed with ASA,
Right.
which, needs those higher temperatures.
Right.
And, the Core One's enclosed design really comes into play here.
So the enclosure isn't just for noise reduction and safety.
No.
It's also crucial for printing with certain materials.
Exactly. It creates that controlled environment that you need for those high temperature filaments.
Right, right. And, it's interesting how they actually heat the chamber.
Oh, yeah. It's really clever.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So instead of using a separate heater for the chamber,
Oh,
the Core One actually utilizes the heated bed itself.
oh, wow. So they're killing two birds with one stone.
Exactly. It's a really smart design choice.
Yeah, that's impressive.
It saves energy and simplifies the system.
So it sounds like the Prusa CORE One really lives up to the hype.
I think so, yeah.
It's a well-rounded machine that offers a lot of value for the price.
Definitely.
It might not have every single bell and whistle,
True.
but it excels in the areas that matter most to Prusa,
Right.
which are, performance, user-friendliness, and sustainability.
Exactly. And I think those are the things that matter most to a lot of 3D printing enthusiasts as well.
Okay, so let's say someone is convinced and they're ready to buy a Core One.
Okay.
What should they know before they take the plunge?
Well, like we mentioned, it comes in both pre-assembled and DIY kit versions. So you can choose the option that, best suits your skill level and your budget.
Okay.
The kit is a bit more affordable,
Okay.
but it does require some assembly.
Right, and I'm guessing the pre-assembled version is like ready to print right out of the box.
Pretty much.
Wow.
You just need to do, some basic setup and calibration.
Right.
But Prusa provides really clear instructions and videos
Oh, that's good.
to guide you through the process.
Okay, so even someone who's, not super tech savvy can probably handle it.
Yeah, definitely. They make it really easy.
Awesome. And what about ongoing costs, like, filament and stuff?
Well, yeah, you'll need to factor in the cost of filament,
Yeah.
which can vary, depending on the type and brand you choose.
Right.
But Prusa offers a wide range of filaments at, pretty reasonable prices.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, and they're always innovating with new materials.
That's cool.
So you have a lot of options.
All right, so it sounds like the Core One is a great option for both beginners and more experienced makers
Yeah, I think so.
who are looking for, a high-quality, sustainable, and user-friendly 3D printer.
Absolutely. And it's a machine that's, built to last
Yeah.
and designed to empower you to create just about anything you can imagine.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
Yeah.
Before we wrap things up, I want to take a minute to step back and look at the bigger picture,
Okay.
because we've been talking a lot about, the Core One and its features.
Right.
But I think it's important to remember that this isn't just about a single 3D printer.
No, it's not.
It's about a company that's trying to do things differently.
Absolutely. They're challenging the status quo.
Yeah. With their commitment to
Yeah.
open source technology, sustainable manufacturing, and, really a focus on empowering individuals.
It's a really exciting message, and I think it's one that resonates with a lot of people.
It really does. All right. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today,
We have.
and I'm sure our listeners have a lot to think about.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll be right back after a quick break to, wrap things up and leave you with some final thoughts.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're back, and we've talked a lot about the Core One 3D printer, all the ins and outs, the tech, the company behind it. But, I kind of want to zoom out a little bit now.
Yeah.
What does this all mean? Like, what does the Core One tell us about the future of 3D printing in general?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the Core One is kind of it's like a sign, right? 3D printing is going from being just a hobby, a niche thing,
Right, right.
to something that's really changing how we make things.
So you're saying it's not just about, like, printing little plastic toys anymore.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking about a future where you could be printing functional parts for your appliances,
Yeah.
or maybe custom tools for your workshop, or
What's
even
that?
personalized medical devices, stuff like that.
It's like having a little mini factory in your home.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
That's kind of a powerful idea.
It is. And as the technology gets, more affordable, more user-friendly, like that power is becoming more accessible to everybody.
Right. Right.
And that's exciting. Imagine, like, you don't have to rely on big companies for everything. You can just like design and create your own solutions to problems.
I like that. That's a very optimistic view of the future.
Well, I try to be an optimist.
But are there any downsides to that? Like, what about if everyone has a 3D printer, what about the environmental impact of that?
Yeah, that's a valid concern for sure.
Yeah.
But, the Core One actually shows us how 3D printing can be part of the solution.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about Prusa using recycled materials, their own 3D printed parts?
Right. Right. To reduce waste.
Exactly. And they really encourage people to repair their printers, to upgrade them.
Instead of throwing them away.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a whole different mindset, right?
Yeah, it is. It's not just about consuming the latest and greatest. It's about like being responsible and thinking long term.
Exactly. And, their commitment to open source means that people can share designs, they can collaborate, they can, collectively find ways to make 3D printing even more sustainable.
So it's not just about the technology itself.
No.
It's about the philosophy behind it.
Yeah, the whole approach.
That's really cool. But, let's be real, not every company is going to embrace that philosophy, right?
Well, true.
Yeah. So what can we do? Like as consumers, what can we do to encourage more ethical and sustainable practices in the 3D printing world?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I think it comes down to making informed choices, right?
Yep.
Supporting companies that are taking steps to reduce their impact, that are promoting open source.
Yeah.
We can demand transparency about where materials come from, how things are made.
Right.
It's about being an active consumer, not just a passive one.
So we have a role to play in shaping the future of this technology.
Absolutely. Every purchase we make is a vote, right? It's a vote for the kind of world we want to live in.
And it sounds like the Prusa CORE One is a pretty good place to start.
It is. It's a great printer, and it's a symbol of, a more sustainable and equitable future.
Well said. This has been an amazing deep dive.
I agree.
We've learned so much about the Core One, about 3D printing, and about the potential of this technology to really change the world.
Yeah, and we've only scratched the surface, really.
I know. Who knows what's coming next?
Exciting times.
Yeah. So if you're as fascinated by the Core One as we are, we definitely encourage you to check out that Tom's Hardware review.
Yeah, they did a great job.
They did. Yeah. And also, visit Prusa's website.
Lots of good info there.
They have a ton of information about their products, about their philosophy,
Yeah.
and really about their vision for the future.
They're really pushing the boundaries.
They are. And, this is just the beginning of the conversation, all right?
Definitely. The future of 3D printing is, it's in our hands.
Yeah.
It's up to all of us to shape it responsibly.
And creatively.
And creatively, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the Prusa CORE One. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic to explore. Until then, keep those minds curious and those imaginations running wild.